3 and 4 propellers plus a rudder. I believe that is finally my first ship finished. Isn't she a beauty? Oh god, what is that? Oh wait, no. Good evening, fellow water lovers, and welcome to From the Depths. Do you like building boats, planes, and tanks? You do? Alright, good. Now, how about one of the steepest learning curves you've ever seen in a game? You still with me? Alright, last question. How many of your dreams can you see get crushed before you decide to jump ship entirely and start doing something else? A lot? Alright, that's very good. You are going to need that determination in life, and especially in From the Depths. This is the premier game in spending several hours surgically crafting your ambitions into an ironclad warship, and then watching them get ripped apart at this first sign of an even fight. This is the kind of game where the community commonly jokes that you need an engineering degree just to beat the main campaign on the easiest difficulty. Why, you may ask? Well, barring a few mentally exhausting tutorials, this game is essentially dropping a 4th grader into a college calculus class and expecting them to pass. In other words, this game is Darwinism at its finest. At its core, From the Depths is a voxel-based building game that allows you to pit your creations against each other like a cockfighting ring. Now, the combat itself is not particularly challenging, especially when you consider that most of the crafts control themselves. No. The building is the hard part. Optimal armor composition, semi-realistic steam and fuel engines, assembling intricate weapon parts in multiple dimensions for maximum efficient use of space, and much more are all a concern in From the Depths. Focusing on just ships for now, many people say there are 5 main pillars to building a good boat. The first is the hull. General shape, armor layout, and materials used can make a huge difference in the quality and viability of a craft. I personally use a lightweight alloy and metal, with layers of heavy armor around vital components. The second pillar is automation. Neither is a big place, and you can't be personally driving all of your vehicles at once, so you came up with a brilliant solution. This little block right here is an AI mainframe that can control your craft's movement, weapons, detection, defenses, and more without needing any input from you past the initial programming. How does it work? Well, if you look inside the box, you can see a brain. The third pillar is your weaponry. From simple cram cannons and spiked rams to lasers and particle accelerator cannons, and even the unmatched power of the sun. There is no shortage of options to atomize your opponents from orbit with. The fourth is internals. This includes resource storage like energy, ammo, fuel, and materials, as well as ways to produce those resources. It also includes engines to make your ship go, detection equipment to see your enemies and get accurate targeting data, and much more. The fifth and final pillar is defenses. This, of course, includes armor, but From the Depths has no shortage of options when it comes to wrapping your crafts in many layers of emotional support and tungsten titanium alloys. From simple flares and sea-whiz systems to shield projectors and lasers that can zap any incoming projectile out of the air. Good defensive systems are an extremely important part of any craft that isn't absolute garbage, so make sure you include them. Now that you understand the basics of shipbuilding, what can you actually do with this knowledge? Well, you build boats, you idiot. You fuck. Behold, the Smidgen-class patrol boat. Her primary weapon is this twin-barreled, low-caliber, high-RPM autocannon that specializes in destroying exposed and vulnerable components on enemy ships. It also doubles as a sea-whiz gun, so it can be used to shoot down incoming missiles and cram cannon shells. And it is also outfitted with a barrage of medium missiles, missile interceptors on these turrets, jet engines for some extra speed, and it can even turn into a submarine in a pinch. This is the second most recent ship I've actually built, and I'm pretty proud of how well put together it is. Where's my newest ship, you might ask? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Once you've got something you can be truly proud of, you can take it into battle for a true test of your skills. Where's the best place to test these skills? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I've beaten the campaign 5 times. So trust me when I say this, the campaign is actually pretty fun, and it's even got a story that you can piece together on your own time. The basic premise is pretty simple, just taking over the world. However, 8 factions stand in your way, so buckle your fuckles. It's time for more exposition, because as the great Sun Tzu once said, if you know your enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. First, and widely considered to be the easiest faction in the game, is the Deepwater Guard, a nation of pirates outfitted with shitty wooden boats with cannons and missiles. 90% of their crafts are essentially just fodder, but make sure to watch out for those rare 10%ers like the crossbones. A second easy faction is the Onyx Watch. This is a nation of merchants that essentially took one look at a castle and said, yes, but on water. These guys like thick armor, semi-reliable laser defense systems, and huge cannons and missiles. The first word that comes to mind when thinking about the Lightning Hoods is annoying. They have 2 main gimmicks. They're fast, and they love advanced weaponry. However, armor and speed don't mix very well, so anything that can actually hit them is going to leave a mark. The fourth faction and the Lightning Hood's best buddies are the White Flares. This is my second favorite faction because they're just so unique without being outright annoying like another faction I know. The White Flares is a huge cult with 3 main design philosophies. For the low-level zealots of the cult, there are rickety and haphazard boats and thruster craft, usually covered in spikes and sometimes even nuclear warheads. Calling them kamikaze boats wouldn't be entirely inaccurate, as most of the designs for this tier have a very low survivability rate for their pilots. Second type of craft you may encounter is the Prelate. These are for the mid-level members of the cult and are generally more dangerous and reliable than what the Zealots have access to. The final and most dangerous category is the High Priest class of ships. These will be some of the deadliest warships on the 7 Seas, and they are some of the few crafts I actually fear going into battle with from the medium difficulty factions. The Twin Guard. Honestly, I can make a whole video on these guys, but I don't want to bore you, so here's a one-word summary. Hacks! The Grey Talons. Overall, kind of a slept-on faction, but I understand why. Literally every single one of their designs falls into one of 2 categories: fortress or airship. They like heavy armor, front-siders, and big guns, which I deeply respect. The Steel Striders. These guys are basically if the United States military wasn't so constrained by technology and budget limiting. The final faction from the depths, and considered by most to be the final boss, the Scarlet Dawn. Most people seem to think these guys are aliens, but I'm here to tell you that they're actually just a bunch of nerds that used to live on Neater and ran away from an apocalypse centuries ago. If you want to fight this faction without extreme pain, I'd highly recommend either really strong lasers or spacecraft, or both. So now that you know your enemy and you know yourself, it's time to get into the campaign, or should I say it's time for me to get into the campaign.